This is Seventh Generation Warfare, and I'm your current host, John Nelson. In this episode, we'll be looking at beginning family creative writing. I don't know if that's what I'll call it, but as part of Family Anthology, which I have discussed, you can go back to the video How to Fight Seventh Generation Warfare, and I talk about family anthologies, keeping good records of the family of the past in order to share the lessons with your family in the future. This being done in two ways, both historical biographies, and we'll get into that later. I have not yet started to partake in that endeavor, but I have a framework that I'm going to be working with. And then also the creative writing piece of anything of note of family members from the past that you might want to highlight and create stories for your children, great children, and etc. And the reason being for this is creating our own literature, our own media, because frankly, the media that we get out of Hollywood, out of all the different media outlets, is pretty contaminated with a lot of messaging that you might not want for your children. So controlling that and sharing positive things, and also having the extra detail of being related to these people in the stories will have a much greater impact and leave a greater mark when the children read or consume this media that we create for them. So that's what I have started. I have a great great grandfather who saved a train full of people, and I am writing some a creative story about that. It's very hyperbolic. I have added a lot of details that I have no reason to suspect were there, but it's becoming an epic or quite the tale. It's going to be about 20 pages on Word, however that formats into a book. I'm not quite sure. It started off as the basics of the story, and I tried to think. This is for you if you want to write one. Ideally, these stories could be passed down for a couple generations, and highlighted and exaggerated, and then great great grandchild or something could write it. But I'm trying to get a few of these stories into the books so that I can demonstrate what the writing should look like. So I went through the process of the storytelling of multiple generations in my own head. So the initial story added what I thought would be a unique detail or fanciful detail if I was just telling it to my kids to make it more exciting. Then I added another one if they were telling it to their kids to make it more exciting. And then another one and another one, and then it just kind of snowballed. And now the story is not ultimately based in that much truth. We'll still have the initial document I'm basing it off of, and we will highlight that in the family anthology of this is the truth about James Adams, my great great grandfather. But this is the legend. This is the tale. So you just take a story, and if you're not good at writing, you'll want to practice. But practice makes perfect. I found for myself, I was always in remedial reading and writing classes all through public school. I was in with some very special kids because I was incompetent when it came to the ways of the English language. But in college, that first started to turn around when I was educated in English literature on creative writing, and I really just appealed to all my senses and put all my senses down on a paper. I think a good exercise would be just to find something mundane in your life and just write about it and try to describe it in all the senses, and try to think of creative ways to describe what your senses are telling you. But I'm not a creative writing teacher. The other good thing you would have to do to get into creative writing would be read a lot. because I can definitely see as I'm writing some echoes of some of the authors I've read coming through out of my own mouth. So the more you read, the better you'll be able to write. But so I wrote the first draft of this story, and I'm spending the money to get it professionally edited, and I will spend the money to get it published, self-published, or if a publishing house wants to pick it up, that's fine. But if a publishing house were to pick it up, I would not change any. I would not compromise the story for them wanting it to be more accessible to the public today. I would just self-publish it before they wanted me to add any kind of detail that doesn't belong. But so I sent it to an editor, and she came back and basically said, "Yeah, it's good, but here's a bunch of ways you can improve it." And so I am currently in the midst of making the second draft, and it's exploding even more. I had hoped that I was going to be able to share the finished copy with you by now, but I'm only in the midst of the writing the second draft, and since it just became a whole lot longer, there's all kinds of edits that will have to be made. So it'll be a couple of weeks, but I look forward to sharing with you the story of James and the Frisco, I'm calling it. So stay tuned for that. I hope it will inspire you to write some of your own creative writing for your own seventh generation warfare, so that your kids can learn from the examples of the relatives that came before them. And if writing's not your thing, there's other mediums. If you're into videography, you can make some videos or something. The possibilities are endless of how you communicate these stories. You could just keep it entirely verbal, but if you're keeping your family folklore verbal, you'll want to tell it enough that your kids are going to remember it, and when they get old enough, uh, you know, consciously get them to remember that they should be passing it on to their kids. But anyways, I hope that was helpful. I look to share more with you in the coming days or coming weeks about family folklore. Thank you for watching.